The blood moon rose like a wound across the night sky, its crimson light spilling over the valley and the sprawling grounds of the Silverfang pack. The air was thick with anticipation. Every wolf in the territory had gathered in silence, awaiting the moon goddess's blessing. She stood at the edge of the ceremonial circle, her hands clenched so tightly her nails cut into her palms. Tonight, she was not herself. Tonight, she wore her sister's name like a mask. Remember. Her mother had whispered before pushing her forward, "You must take her place. If the Alpha rejects her, it will destroy us all. But you are strong enough to endure whatever comes." The lie tasted like iron on her tongue, heavier than any chain. She wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she had not chosen this, but the fire in her mother's eyes silenced her, so she stepped into the circle as her sister. The wolves howled in reverence, their voices rising to the moon. She tilted her chin high, though inside she trembled. The earth itself seemed to pulse beneath her bare feet, warning her that once spoken, some lies could never be taken back. And then he appeared, the Alpha. Kieran, his presence stole the breath from her chest. He moved with the quiet power of a storm, his dark hair catching streaks of red moonlight, his amber eyes glowing with untamed authority. He was the man every she-wolf dreamed of, the leader feared by rival packs. And the one fated to bind his soul to another tonight. Her heart stuttered. She knew the truth. He was not destined for her. He was meant for her sister, yet here she stood, cloaked in deception, daring to carry another's destiny. The ritual began. Wolves formed a circle, voices chanting ancient words. The Alpha's gaze cut across the crowd until it landed on her. The world stilled. Amber collided with her own eyes, and something inside her snapped tight, like invisible threads sewing her soul to his. She gasped, staggered a step, the mate bond. It shouldn't have been hers. A low growl rumbled in his chest. His expression was unreadable, hunger shadowed with suspicion. He stepped closer, his voice a command wrapped in velvet. "You," his eyes narrowed, piercing straight through her trembling mask. "You're the one." The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. Relief should have filled her. After all, the deception had worked. Instead, dread clawed through her ribs, because in that moment she realized the cruelest truth of all. The Alpha had claimed the name she wore, not the girl beneath it, and the price of this lie had only just begun to unfold. Fade to black, heartbeat echoing like a warning. The fire pits blazed around the ceremonial grounds, painting the night in shifting shadows. The crowd's excitement grew into a deafening roar, wolves bowing in reverence as their Alpha stepped forward. His claim had been made, yet his eyes did not hold the warmth of a man who had found his fated mate. They were cold, searching. Her breath caught as he closed the space between them, his height towering, his aura pressing down on her like a weight she could hardly bear. She forced her chin to stay lifted, though her knees threatened to buckle. "Do you accept me?" His voice was low, threaded with steel, but the crowd around them hushed instantly, hanging on his every word. The bond tugged at her heart, relentless, intoxicating. She felt the pull deep in her veins, as though the moon goddess herself demanded she surrender. Every instinct screamed to whisper yes, but the truth burned at her throat like poison. He was meant for her sister, not for her. Still, the words came, fragile and trembling. "I accept you." A hush fell across the gathering. The pack howled, the sound shaking the trees, echoing through the mountains. Wolves leapt and danced, celebrating the joining of Alpha and Luna. Yet the Alpha's eyes never softened. He leaned closer, his lips barely brushing her ear, his breath hot against her skin. "You feel it too, don't you?" her pulse thundered. "Feel what?" "The bond, it's there." His voice was harsh now, accusing, "But there's something wrong." She flinched. Did he already know? Did her lie shine so clearly through her skin? She tried to steady her voice to mimic her sister's calm. "You doubt the moon goddess." The growl that rolled from his chest made her blood run cold. He stepped back, his gaze raking her face, lingering too long, as though peeling away every layer she tried to hide behind. "No," he said finally, the edge of a snarl in his tone. "I doubt you." The words struck sharper than claws. Around them, the pack celebrated in blissful ignorance, chanting their Alpha's name, crying out blessings to the goddess. To them, this was triumph, destiny fulfilled. But beneath the cheers, a different truth crackled like lightning in the charged air. The Alpha had accepted her because he believed in the bond. Yet his eyes, those burning, mistrustful eyes, spoke of suspicion, of a storm waiting to break. Her hands trembled as he turned from her to address the pack, his voice commanding, "Tonight, the moon goddess has bound us. Rejoice, for our future has been sealed." The wolves erupted into cheers, their devotion absolute. But when his gaze flicked back to her, just for an instant, she saw it again, ice in his stare. The bond might have snapped into place, but trust had not, and she knew, with a sinking heart, that the Alpha's cold eyes would follow her every step until the truth was forced into the light. The night ended in triumph for the pack. But for her, it was only the beginning of a cage she could never escape. The grand hall of the Silverfang pack glowed with golden light, chandeliers swaying gently from the high beams. Long tables groaned beneath the weight of roasted meats, sweet breads and wine, but she could hardly taste the feast before her. Every step she took, every glance she stole across the crowded room, was shadowed by the Alpha's cold stare. Kieran sat at the head of the table, the crown of leadership heavy upon his shoulders, though no metal touched his head. He barely touched his plate, his amber eyes returning to her again and again, sharp as blades, as though he waited for her to trip and shatter the fragile illusion she had built. She sat straighter, forcing a smile that felt brittle. Around her the whispers spread like wildfire. Did you see her hesitate during the vow? She doesn't look like a Luna, too nervous, too plain. Perhaps the moon goddess made a mistake. The words were daggers disguised as murmurs. She felt them press into her back, crawl beneath her skin. Her sister would have smiled, would have charmed them all into silence, but she was no skilled liar. She was simply a girl trapped in a role that was never hers. Her goblet trembled in her hand. When she tried to rise, her foot caught the edge of her gown. The hall seemed to lurch. She stumbled, crashing against the side of the table, wine spilling in a dark red arc across the snow-white cloth. Gasps rose around her like a storm, laughter followed, cruel and thin. A single growl silenced them. Kieran stood, his presence filling the hall, eyes blazing enough. His voice cracked like thunder. "She is your Luna. You will show her respect." The hall bowed their heads, voices dying instantly. Her chest tightened. For a moment, she felt safe beneath his protection, a warmth flickering where only fear had lived. But then his hand closed around her wrist, firm, unyielding. He pulled her through the side door, away from the eyes of the pack, into the shadowed corridor. His grip burned, not with tenderness, but with restrained fury. The silence was heavier here, broken only by the pounding of her heart. "You're clumsy, weak." His voice was low, but sharp enough to wound. His gaze bored into her, and for the first time she thought she saw more than suspicion in his eyes. She saw hunger, confusion, as though he hated that the bond had chosen her. She swallowed hard. I'll do better. Don't lie to me." He leaned closer, so near she could feel the heat of his breath against her ear. "You're not who you pretend to be." Her blood ran cold. The corridor seemed to close in on her, walls pressing tighter and tighter. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The Alpha released her wrist, stepping back with a dark look. His voice was final, chilling. "I'll find out the truth, little Luna, and when I do." His lips curled into a bitter smile. "No bond will save you." The words hung in the air like a blade, and in her chest, her secret throbbed like a wound, waiting to be cut open. The pack gathered once more in the courtyard, beneath the silver light of the moon. Fires burned high, laughter and music weaving through the night. To them, it was a night of triumph, an Alpha bound, a Luna chosen. But for her, every smile, every cheer, was another reminder of the lie pressed tight against her skin. She stood at Kieran's side, her hands cold despite the heat of the flames. His hand brushed against hers, commanding without tenderness. He leaned closer, his voice barely a growl beneath the noise. "They watch us." Her throat tightened. "I know, they expect a display, they expect us." His eyes slid to her mouth, then back to her wide, uncertain gaze. There was no affection in his look, only the weight of expectation, the sharp edge of mistrust. Her pulse raced, the bond pulled at her with cruel insistence, her body betraying her secret with every shiver. This kiss would not belong to her, it would belong to the sister whose name she wore, yet the pack did not care for truth. They cared for a Luna who played her part. Kieran's hand lifted, strong and unyielding as it framed her jaw. The crowd's cheers rose as he drew her close, and then his mouth claimed hers, her world shattered. Heat flooded through her veins, burning away her thoughts, her defenses. His lips were firm, his presence overwhelming, as though the bond itself roared through his touch. She tried to remind herself this wasn't real. This kiss was meant for another. But her body betrayed her, trembling under the weight of it, clinging to the fire that shouldn't have been hers to feel. The crowd howled in delight. Wolves stamped the earth, their joy echoing across the mountains. But when Kieran pulled away, his eyes did not reflect joy. They were shadowed, conflicted, his voice meant for her ears alone. "I'll never love you as much as I loved her." Her breath caught. The words sliced through her chest. Her, the sister he believed stood before him, the sister who was never here. Her heart stung with cruel irony. She had stolen her sister's place, yet she could not steal the Alpha's heart. She forced a smile for the watching pack, but inside her spirit twisted. His lips had awakened something forbidden, something that could never be spoken. Kieran released her, turning to the pack, his Alpha's mask falling back into place. "Celebrate," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of a king. "The bond has been sealed." The courtyard erupted in revelry, drums pounding, voices rising, but she stood frozen, her lips still tingling, her soul aching with a truth too heavy to carry. Because in that single kiss, she had tasted what it meant to be his. And in his whispered words, she had learned what it meant to never truly be. And the night stretched long, with her lie pressed tighter than ever, as though it would choke her before dawn. The celebration dragged long into the night, but she could not bear another glance, another whisper, another moment of pretending. While the pack feasted and danced, she slipped quietly from the courtyard, her gown trailing over the cobblestones as she fled toward the woods. The forest was alive with silver light, the moon spilling across the leaves, weaving shadows like lace across the earth. She pressed her back against a tree, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. For a moment she let the mask slip, her face twisted with guilt, her lips trembling with the memory of a kiss that had never belonged to her. Running away already, the voice curled around her like smoke. Her eyes snapped open. Kieran stood at the edge of the clearing, the moon painting him in shades of steel and shadow. His gaze pinned her where she stood, his presence devouring the space between them. "I needed air," she whispered, though her words sounded fragile even to her own ears. He stepped closer, boots crunching softly against the earth. "Or perhaps you needed distance." His head tilted, studying her with those unrelenting amber eyes. "From me," her heart thundered, the bond thrummed in her chest, pulling her toward him even as fear begged her to retreat. She shook her head, her voice faltering. "That's not true." "Then tell me," he pressed, his tone sharper now, more dangerous. "What are you hiding from me?" The question pierced her like a blade. She wanted to cry out the truth, to confess that she was not the sister he thought she was, that this entire bond was built on a lie. Her lips parted, the words trembling at the edge. She swallowed, tears stinging her eyes. "I don't want to lose you." Silence hung heavy between them. His breath caught, his jaw tightening, as though her haft. Ruth unsettled him more than a confession might have. He stepped closer, so close the heat of him pressed against her skin. "You think you can lose me?" His voice was low, dangerous in its intimacy. His hand rose, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. "You think the bond allows for that?" Her chest ached. His touch was fire, his nearness unbearable. She shook her head, whispering the only truth she dared. "I'm afraid of what you'll find if you look too closely." For the first time, his expression softened, if only slightly. His thumb lingered against her skin, his gaze burning straight into her. "Then I'll look," he murmured. "I'll tear apart every secret, every shadow you hide behind, until nothing stands between us." Her knees weakened beneath the weight of his promise. The forest seemed still, the night itself holding its breath. And then, just as the bond tugged her closer, just as she almost surrendered to the truth she had buried, his voice dropped, dark and certain. "I will uncover everything you're hiding," he vowed, "and when I do, you'll be mine in ways you can't yet imagine." The moonlight wrapped around them, a witness to the dangerous intimacy blooming between lies and longing. And in her chest, the truth screamed to break free, yet her silence chained it still. The next morning dawned with golden light spilling across the packlands, but peace did not last. By midday, the hall was filled with voices, deep, commanding, laced with unease. Rival pack leaders had come to pay respect to their alpha's bond, and already their eyes were sharp with judgment. She sat at Kieran's side, her hands folded tightly in her lap, forcing composure while the weight of their gazes pressed against her. One elder leaned forward, his lip curling. "She is not what we expected of a Luna." Another sneered, "Her bloodline is questionable. Where is the strength we were promised?" Murmurs rippled across the long table, each word more poisonous than the last. Her throat constricted, shame coiling in her chest like a serpent. The truth behind their suspicions struck harder than their words, because they were right. She wasn't who she pretended to be, but before she could crumble, the room shook with a snarl. Kieran rose to his feet, his hand slamming against the table with such force the wood splintered beneath his palm. His aura exploded outward, a wave of dominance so strong the hall fell silent at once. "Enough," his voice thundered like storm winds. His amber eyes blazed as he glared down at the rivals who had dared question her. "She is mine, chosen by the moon goddess. To insult her is to insult me." The challengers lowered their gazes, forced into submission beneath his fury. The air crackled with the power of his presence, the promise of violence lingering on every word. Her chest swelled, a dangerous warmth rising within her. For a fleeting moment, she believed in the safety of his protection, believed that perhaps the bond was stronger than suspicion, stronger than the lie. But when the guests departed and the hall emptied, the alpha's fury did not fade, it turned on her. He dragged her from the chamber into the shadowed corridor, his grip tight around her arm, his steps echoing against the stone. He pushed her gently but firmly against the wall, his face so close his breath fanned her cheek. "You heard them." His voice was low, dangerous. "They sense it too. Something is off." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "Kieran, don't." His growl silenced her, his eyes burning with a fire she could not meet. "I defended you. I silenced them, but I need the truth." His hand braced beside her head, caging her in. "Who are you really?" The words ripped through her, sharper than claws. Her lips parted, the truth trembling at the edge of her tongue, but fear locked it inside her chest. "I am your Luna," she whispered, hating the weakness in her voice. His gaze searched hers, his fury colliding with something deeper, longing, pain, hunger. He stepped back slowly, his jaw clenched tight. "You think you can lie to me forever." His voice dropped to a dangerous promise. "You can't. I'll tear the truth from you if I have to." He turned, leaving her trembling in the shadowed hall, and for the first time she realized that his suspicion was no longer a whisper. It was a storm gathering strength, and soon it would break. The night air was cool, yet her skin burned with the memory of Kieran's words. "I'll tear the truth from you." Sleep did not come. She tossed beneath the sheets, her heart pounding with every imagined confrontation, every nightmare where her mask shattered before the pack. At last she could not bear the silence. Wrapping a cloak around her shoulders, she slipped from her chambers and wandered to the cliffside, where the ocean roared against the rocks below. The moon hung above her like a watchful eye, demanding the confession she refused to give. She whispered into the night, "If you knew who I was, you'd hate me. You think so little of me." Her heart stopped. She turned. Kieran stood at the edge of the cliff, the moonlight casting his features in shadow and steel. His eyes glowed with the golden fire of his wolf. He had followed her. Perhaps he had always been following her. "I don't," her words broke, trembling. "It's not you, it's me." He stepped closer, every movement carrying the weight of a predator cornering prey. Yet his voice was quieter than she expected, wounded even. "Every time I reach for you, you retreat. Every time I ask for truth, you bury it deeper. Do you know what that feels like?" Her throat ached. She wanted to tell him everything, to throw herself at his mercy, but the fear of what would come, the rejection, the disgust in his eyes, froze her tongue. "I am protecting you," she whispered instead. Kieran's jaw clenched. He cupped her face suddenly, forcing her to meet his gaze. His hands were warm, his touch too gentle for the storm in his eyes. "You think lies protect me," his voice cracked like a whip. "Lies cut deeper than rejection. Do you understand? I would rather you tell me the ugliest truth than watch you vanish behind this mask every day." Her eyes blurred with tears. The alpha who commanded warriors to their knees, who silenced entire packs with a growl, now stood before her raw and pleading, and it broke something inside her. "I can't," she sobbed, her voice a fragile echo against the sea. "If I tell you, you'll never forgive me." He pulled her against his chest, his arms crushing her to him as if he could fuse them into one. "You're mine," he growled into her hair. "Even if the truth destroys me, you're still mine. The bond doesn't lie." But as his words wrapped around her, promising devotion, her guilt burned hotter because he was wrong. The bond could lie. When it was tied to the wrong sister, she clung to him anyway, knowing this fragile moment could not last. The truth loomed over them like a blade, and when it finally fell, it would cut deeper than any rejection. The forest was restless. Owls fell silent, and even the crickets hushed as if the night itself knew something was coming. She ran. Branches whipped at her cloak as she stumbled deeper into the trees, fleeing the cliffside where Kieran's raw words had branded her heart. His vow, "You're mine, no matter the truth," haunted every step. It should have soothed her. Instead, it tore her apart. She could not face him, not tonight, not with the weight of the lie crushing her chest. But the mate bond was relentless. It tugged like a golden thread stitched into her heart, pulling her back toward him even as her feet carried her away. Every breath tasted of him, every heartbeat throbbed with his anger, his longing, his pain, and then another presence. The air thickened, charged with a scent not his. Muskier, darker, edged with the metallic tang of blood. She froze. From the shadows stepped a man cloaked in midnight fur at his shoulders, his eyes the pale silver of a predator who feared nothing. His aura screamed alpha, but not of this land. "Well, well," he murmured, his voice a velvet snarl. "So it's true, the great alpha Kieran's mate wanders the forest alone." His gaze swept her with dangerous hunger, or should I say, his stolen mate. Her throat tightened. "Who are you, Ronan?" he said simply. "Alpha of the Black Ash Pack, and unlike your beloved Kieran, I can smell a lie when I see one." Her blood ran cold. Had he guessed? He circled her slowly, like a wolf savoring his prey. "You wear another's name like a mask, but the bond still clings to you, doesn't it? That should be impossible. A mistake of the moon goddess, or perhaps a cruel joke." His smile was sharp. "Either way, it means Kieran's bond is weaker than he thinks." Her chest ached, the bond with Kieran burning hotter at Ronan's words, as if protesting. "You don't know what you're talking about," she snapped, though her voice trembled. "Oh, I do." Ronan's eyes gleamed with malicious delight. "I've seen bonds twisted by lies. They don't last, they break." He leaned closer, his breath brushing her ear, "And when Kieran finally breaks yours, I'll be waiting to claim what's left." Before she could recoil, the forest erupted. A growl thundered through the trees, deep and furious, shaking the very ground beneath them. Kieran, he burst from the shadows in his wolf form, a beast of dark fur and golden eyes blazing with rage. His teeth snapped in the air between her and Ronan, his snarl reverberating like a war drum. "Touch her again." Kieran's voice rumbled through the bond, even without words, "and I'll rip out your throat." Ronan only laughed, retreating into the shadows with a mocking bow. "Careful, Kieran. Lies have a way of killing faster than claws." And then he was gone. Her knees buckled, but Kieran was already shifting back, his arms catching her before she fell. His chest heaved, his body trembling with fury and fear. "You shouldn't be here alone," he growled, holding her tight. But his eyes, blazing down into hers, asked a deeper question. What secret of yours just put us both in danger? The moon had climbed high, swollen and watchful, when the first howl cut the night. It wasn't Kieran's, it wasn't hers, it was Ronan's. The sound echoed across the valley, sharp as a blade, summoning shadows from every direction. Within moments, wolves poured from the trees, sleek, dark, furred, eyes glowing with the cold fire of a rival pack. Black ash wolves. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't a warning. It was an invasion. Kieran shoved her behind him, already shifting, bones cracking, fur ripping through skin until the alpha stood on 4 powerful legs, his growl splitting the silence. The forest erupted in chaos as wolves clashed, teeth and claws tearing through the night. Stay hidden, Kieran ordered through the bond, though his focus never wavered from the enemies circling them. But she knew she couldn't hide, not now. Not when the pack house lights were flickering in the distance and their own pack members rushed toward the battle. Confusion twisted in her chest. This wasn't just Ronan's plan. It was a trap meant to expose her. Because as she stumbled into the clearing, she heard the words that turned her blood to ice. She's not who she says she is. A wolf from Black Ash sneered, shifting back to his human form to spit the accusation aloud. His voice carried over the snarls and screams. The alpha's mate is a fraud. She wears her sister's name. Gasps rippled through the arriving crescent moon wolves. Their eyes darted between her trembling figure and Kieran's raging form. Doubt cut through the air sharper than claws. No, she whispered, chest tight. Ronan stepped into the clearing, already in his human skin, his smile cruel. Go on, he taunted. Tell them who you really are, or let me do it for you. Kieran snapped his jaws at him, fury incarnate, but the damage was already spilling like blood. The whispers spread. She's not the real one. She tricked the alpha. She cursed the bond. Her throat burned. Every word sliced deeper. Kieran, she tried, but her voice broke. That hesitation was all Ronan needed. He lunged, shifting mid-stride, his massive wolf form colliding with Kieran's. The ground shook as alpha met alpha, snarls and blood staining the soil. She screamed his name, torn between fear and guilt, watching the man who had defended her against the world fight to the death for her. The pack stood frozen in a ring, some shouting, some too stunned to move. They saw her truth now, whether she spoke it aloud or not. She wasn't the sister they believed. She was the liar, the imposter, the girl who should never have been chosen. And yet, as the 2 alphas tore into each other, she felt the bond inside her blaze brighter than ever. Kieran's pain was her pain. His fight was her fight. The lie might have started this war, but the bond was unbreakable. She stumbled forward, blood pounding in her ears, knowing that the next breath, the next move would decide everything. The clearing reeked of iron and smoke. Wolves circled, snarls echoing, eyes gleaming with both fear and hunger for blood. At the center, 2 alphas clashed. Kieran's wolf lunged, slamming Ronan into the dirt, claws raking fur and flesh. Ronan bit back, snapping at Kieran's throat, but the crescent moon alpha twisted free, golden eyes blazing with fury. The ground was painted red beneath their struggle, their roars shaking the very trees. She stood at the edge trembling, her secret already spilled like an open wound. Whispers curled around her like poison. Imposter, liar. She shamed the alpha. Her lungs ached with the weight of it, but when Kieran staggered under Ronan's latest strike, instinct drowned her fear. She ran forward. Kieran, her voice cracked the night. The sound reached him through the bond, sharp as an arrow. His golden gaze snapped to hers, and for a split second, the war around them blurred into silence. She saw his pain, his fury, but also the bond tethered to her heart, still blazing unbroken. That heartbeat was all Ronan needed. He lunged, teeth bared for Kieran's throat, but she threw herself between them. Ronan's fangs grazed her arm, tearing flesh, before Kieran slammed into him with the force of a storm. The Black Ash alpha yelped, bones crunching under the blow before Kieran pinned him, his jaws at his throat. One bite, one snap, that was all it would take. The entire pack held its breath, but Kieran's eyes lifted from Ronan to her. Blood dripped from his muzzle, chest heaving, and in that moment, she knew the truth. The real battle wasn't with Ronan. It was with her lie. Slowly, Kieran shifted back, his human form kneeling over his defeated rival. He pressed Ronan into the dirt with one hand, his voice ringing like thunder. This fight was never about territory. It was about her. Gasps rippled through the crescent moon wolves. She lied. Someone shouted, "She's not the sister." Kieran's gaze cut across the clearing, silencing them. His eyes found hers, raw, unyielding, burning with the fire of the bond. She lied. He said, the words heavy. But she is mine. The bond chose her, not the name she carried, not the mask, not the sister, her. The pack erupted in cries, some in outrage, others in disbelief. But the power in his voice left no room for denial. He was alpha, and this was his decree. Kieran yanked Ronan to his feet and shoved him toward the shadows. Leave with your life, Ronan. That is all I grant you. Defeated, bleeding, the rival alpha slunk back into the trees, his pack scattering after him. Silence fell. Only the wind moved, carrying the scent of blood and moonlight. Then Kieran turned to her. His chest rose and fell, his voice ragged but steady. No more lies, he said. No more masks. I want you, not the sister, not the name, just you. Her tears blurred the world, but the bond burned clear as the moon. She stepped into his arms, trembling, whispering, I never deserved you. Kieran lowered his head, his lips brushing her skin as his teeth grazed her mark. You're mine, he growled softly, and then he bit down, sealing the bond not with illusion but with truth. The pack watched in stunned silence, the moon goddess's light spilling across them as if blessing the union. For the first time, she was claimed not as someone else, but as herself, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a lie.